Once again, everyone, a wonderful good morning. Thank you so much for joining our session today. And also to those who will be watching and listening to these recordings, greetings in advance to you as well. We trust that you will be equipped, you will be empowered in your academic endeavors and career aspirations in local government. For those who may not be aware, the University of Technologies such as DUT, TUTs, and many others require students to undertake a 6 months work integrated learning. Others do refer to it as internship. Others call it like a job training program for that particular 6 months. And then thereafter can the student graduate with their public management qualification. Then some of us in this space then assist with student placements and importantly the mentoring of these students. We then urge organizations, departments, and also the experienced public servants to also play a role in this regard. So today's session is predominantly for that purpose, and we, as said, hoping then to equip and empower the students in respect of the personal leadership aspect or personal mastery, others call it, and also just introduce them to this world of work and understanding what really goes on and what is required of them when they actually get to start work in that particular time that they will be at. So with those few words, let me then introduce the session. So as indicated, today we're dealing with personal leadership and world of work readiness. And we just want to appreciate the work that's being done by the Municipal Edge as well as Future Cities Africa, which is represented by Daniel Claassen. And I'm sure most of you have been receiving the recordings of the past sessions and other related good initiatives that are being undertaken by these organizations. So thank you so much to the team that has been putting these together, but also appreciating the collaboration that we have with the DUT, School of Public Management, the TUT, as well as Stellenbosch University have also joined us. And as indicated, these sessions, as we are having them via this platform of Zoom, we then share them out to the universities so that then the learners can be able, the students can then be able to learn as much as they can with respect to local government. I think it was forgetting this university that have actually also requested for us to send through the recordings to them. So we'll ensure that apart from that university, we'll disseminate now this to all the universities because obviously there is a need for this. But watch this space. There is further initiatives that we're actually going to undertake because there is a need and the universities have expressed interest. So we then want to ensure that we can continue with what we have started. The main is blending theory with practice because we do want the academics and all that is there, but importantly as well, we want to ensure that all that is being learned in the university, in the schools, college, and all of that, but it can be practiced and is adequate for the practice and fit for purpose in that respect. This is the series that we have undertaken in the past 4 weeks now. Started with professionalization with the National School of Government with us and Southern National sharing some views with regards to this. Then we had digitization in local government. Last week, we dealt with innovation, smart cities, or others were referring to or efficient cities. What should it be at the present moment? But then that is up to each individual to determine that as part of what was presented. And then obviously today is indicated, it is personal leadership and the world of work. The session outline for this morning, as per usual, I've already done this welcome and the introduction to the session. We'll then have a main presentation, which I've been tasked with doing it for today. I've been trying to run away from, but then I had to do what I have to do. And so today I will be the one to then run through some insight in this respect. Then we'll have some views from a local government expert, and then we've got Prof. Evan from Stellenbosch who will then come through from the academic perspective and also from his insight and knowledge that he has about local government that he'll actually share with us. Then we'll have another expert, local government, and then we can just round off with any comments, questions that may arise thereafter. So as indicated, I will run with the first presentation. I will introduce myself. I've got that task today of doing that. Then we've got Mr. Zonyane, who's also the resident editor at Municipal Edge, but a very experienced local government expert who has been working so proficiently within the space and also has volunteered his time to actually be the resident editor of the Municipal Edge magazine, which we highly appreciate, Mr. Zonyane, in that regard, understanding your busy schedule and work commitments that you have, but you always make time for that, which we appreciate. And then we've got Prof. Evangelos Mantzaris. I told him I don't want to pronounce it, but I've tried to. But I'm just going to call him Prof. Evan. She's good. So he's a senior researcher at Stellenbosch University. And then last but not least, the well-known Mr. Daniel Nolte from the Center for Municipal Asset Management. So that will be our session for today. And as said earlier, we are hoping that you'll be able to gain out of what is to be presented this morning. All right. I'll try and run through a few slides at the beginning that will basically be presenting us with the public sector understanding on a high level, and also it's obviously linkage to local government that we are predominantly focusing on. And then the later part of the presentation will then deal with the issues of ethical and progressive leader in the workplace. So I've already mentioned of the session content for today, but just to introduce myself, it's so good to be the one to introduce yourself, because I can say a lot here, but I will try by all means just to limit it to a few things. I'm a public servant, a very passionate one, but also over the years I've had to be also patient, apart from being passionate, because when you're in local government, you realize that you can't move at the speed that you want to move. So there is also a requirement for you to be patient and just take things as they are, but ensuring that you still do what needs to be done the best that you can. So I've studied 3 universities, DUT, UKZN, and UNISA. I won't tell you whether I did finish in all of them, or perhaps it was just 1 year, 2 years there, but basically I did study in those 3 universities. From a public sector perspective, I am currently based at Ilembe District Municipality, previously with the eThekwini Metro in KZN. I sit on a few boards, such as the SIGFARO, the first one that is on your screen, where I'm the vice president of that institute, Center for Municipal Asset Management. I'm the chairperson of, as well as the Noble Leaders International, working with SALGAM and other stakeholders within our sector. And then importantly, the Municipal Edge, I'm the chief editor. I also serve on the advisory board for DUT, for Public Management and Economics Department, as well as TUT for their Public Finance Advisory Board. I've authored the book, The Road to the CFO Position, about 2 years ago. And currently, we are embarking on a book for local government revenue management, creating or building a sustainable revenue model for our RSA municipalities. And then earlier this year or so, we also completed the practice guide for fostering excellence in municipal asset management. We also further to work on this guide from an academic perspective now, because the first one was more for the officials, but now we are going to translate this now into an actual book to be utilized in the academic space as well. So that is me in a nutshell to introduce myself. So with regards to the public sector, I said I won't run through, go into much detail with the public sector. This is not the session for that, but it's good that it just provides us with an understanding of the subject matter and what we then require as foundations, as principles for our good selves, as students, as aspiring municipal officials that still want to progress further and make a difference within the public sector. Then it's good for us to have that big picture understanding of this public sector of ours. So the three spheres of government, most of us do know of that: national, provincial, local government. And these three spheres are distinct, interdependent, and also interrelated. But we always say, as it is, the local government then is at the forefront of service delivery. I'm not saying it is the most important, but when you're talking about the lives of people on the ground and the delivery that they require in terms of services, then municipalities are right there. This is what His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa once said, and I normally use these quotes in most of my presentations when I'm talking to public servants and public leaders, because it was put in a very, very good stead in terms of our understanding of who public servants are. I'll just run through it for the purposes of the recording, and those will be listening to the recording. So he indicated that being a public servant is an honor and a privilege. It demands dedication, selflessness, professionalism, commitment, and the utmost faithfulness to the principles of Batopele, which is of putting the people first. Public servants are entrusted with managing state resources for the benefit of the public and in guarding against them being misused and abused. They are the representatives of a government derived of the people, for the people, and are guardians of our constitution at a time when we have been confronted with a series of scandals that point to clear complicity by certain public servants in acts of corruption. This is an opportunity for the man and woman tasked with this weighty responsibility to set them apart, to rededicate themselves to their calling, and to fully comprehend what it means to be a servant of the people. So when you get into local government, when you get into the public sector, whether national or provincial, this is what must resonate within your good self. Dedicate yourself to the calling and fully comprehend what it truly means to be a servant of the people. So looking at the public sector, that I'll run through the constitution, the functions of parliament, what comprise of our South African cabinet, the National Assembly, some critical government departments and entities, Chapter 9 institutions, provincial government, and then obviously local government. But as said, this is merely just for those who want to read further about this. I will not go into the details of all of these. So everything that we do finds expression in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa that we have. We all pride ourselves with this Constitution that we have. So everything that you do as a public servant must then ensure that it conforms and aligns to all that is contained within the Constitution. And obviously the government ensures that as much as possible. And that is why then, if something goes off, then it has to go back. Let's look at as to whether is it there and what is the Constitution telling us about that. So these are just the some of the objectives of the Constitution, healing the divisions of the past. We are all aware of that, and obviously ensuring then that we have an established society that is based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights, seeks to improve the quality of life for all the citizens, and also ensure that everyone reaches their potential that they have and not limited by anything, whether race, gender, and all of that. And then obviously laying the foundations for a democratic and open society that we can all be proud of and also be protected by the law. The structure of the government, these are the arms, the parliament, the supreme powers, the National Assembly, then you have the National Council of Provinces. These are the functions of parliament. They make laws, they oversee the work of the executive and state institutions, facilitating public participation as well as international relations and participation, as well as the issue of corporate governance, which is very, very important. And that links up all the ministries, the departments, and also the spheres of government, national, provincial, as well as local government. These are just brief outlines of the cabinet, what comprises the cabinet. It's the president, deputy president, and the respective ministers. Then you have the National Assembly, where we have all our MPs there, which is then presided by the speaker. I'm sure most of us now are more aware of the works of the National Assembly because of what has been happening within our National Assembly from now time and again. We know what all these issues that have been raised there, some disruptions that have been taking place, then at least that has provided us an opportunity to actually learn. Then you have the National Council of Provinces, where you've got 90 delegates, more of 10 members from each province, that then ensures representation within the National Council of Provinces. Then you obviously have other stakeholders that are part of that, such as SALGA for local government and other related. Some of the outcomes by the government that they seek to achieve with all the different departments and entities, I do have a list of all of that. Obviously, because of time, I can't be sharing that, but you can just read through from the government website. There is a government website that you can go to, and it can actually provide you with all of these departments. This is what they seek to do, improve quality of basic education. So obviously out of this, then you get the departments, Department of Higher Education that forms part of this, long and healthy life for all South Africans, which then you'll have the Ministry of Health, people are safe, police and all of that, employment issues and ensuring inclusive economic growth, Department of Labor or the Ministry of Labor, and various other outcomes that the government seeks to actually address. And I've just listed all of them, which you can then read when you receive this presentation later on. So these are just the outcomes that I won't really go much into them, but very, very important to have that understanding and what government truly is all about. Then we've got this department, Ministry of COGTA, Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, one of the most important, yes, the others are, but also this one is very, very important from issues of governance and ensuring that there is cooperativeness that comes through with all the government entities, departments, but also for municipalities where we are, to ensure that municipalities perform their basic responsibilities and functions consistently. That's the very key word as well, which is putting people and their concerns first, supporting the delivery of municipal services to the right quality and standard, promoting good governance, transparency and accountability, ensuring sound financial management and accountability and accounting, and then obviously building institutional resilience as well as administrative capacity. That is the works of COGTA. Then you've got National Treasury that then allocates all the funds to all the departments within the government structure. And this is what then their mandate is all about, promoting national government fiscal policy, coordination of policies for the country, the macroeconomic policy, ensuring the stability and the soundness of the financial system and our financial services, and then coordinating intergovernmental financial and fiscal relations, and then obviously the budget preparation process. I'm sure most of you are aware of the budget speech, the medium terms, and all those nice key things that happen in certain parts of the year that the Minister of Treasury will then come through and present those aspects. And then lastly, obviously ensuring transparency from all organs of state, public entities, and every departments and ministries must then ensure that transparency in terms of the finances of the country. There's various entities that National Treasury has, such as the FIC, SARS, we all know, but they all fall under National Treasury, then entity of National Treasury. DBSA, we recently heard that DBSA has been performing quite well recently. They made a profit, I think over $1 billion, I stand corrected, but one of the departments or entities that are actually doing quite well. PIC, well, yeah, we know some issues around PIC, but we're hoping that maybe Prof can touch on some of these things later on, and then other entities that there. Then we've got Chapter 9 institutions. Well, Public Protector is one of them. It's in the news every day because of the suspension and all of that has been happening within the Public Protector's office. So most of us now have got to have a better understanding of what is this Public Protector office all about. And obviously previously with our past president and the head of that institution, Thuli Madonsela, the Prof, at the time where there were some engagements, good engagements that were taking place, which obviously gave rise to the State Capture Commission. So then we got to know more as well about the functionings of this. Then we've got all these various other ones that are listed, and also importantly, the Independent Electoral Commission, which obviously whenever there are elections that take place, then they oversee the elections, be it local government, be it the national. They are then the ones to deal with that. Provincial governments, premier, MECs, legislature, normally between 30 and 80 members that are there. So if you hear the word MEC, you must know that stands for the members of the Executive Council. Then if you go to the Constitution, then it will set out the powers and functions. Section 127 then details all of that. These are some of the mandate of our provincial government, what they actually seek to do. Listed all of there. Once again, you can read in your good leisure time. This just provides the overview in just a very brief, high level, the structure and functions of the South African government, giving you the legislative authority on this side, which is your Parliament, National Assembly, and then you have the executive authority, which is your cabinet, the president and ministers, as I did indicate. Then you have the judicial authority, which is your courts, the Constitutional Court, Supreme Court, High Court, Magistrate, and thereafter you've got all your provincial governments on this end, and then all other things that I've just mentioned in terms of state institutions and supporting that support our democratic state. Local government, where we are and are focusing on, these are the objects that are outlined in our constitution, which is providing democratic and accountable government for local communities, ensuring the provision of services in a sustainable manner, promoting social and economic development, promoting a safe and healthy environment, and also encouraging the involvement of communities, which is public participation. Currently, our local government is comprised of 8 metros, district, local municipalities. I know that there's some big majors and others that have been spoken about with regards to this, but we will see with time what is going to take place, because there's a number of dysfunctional municipalities in our country, and some of them with unfunded budgets and various other things that are unfortunately taking place. But then we are hoping that, as we have been saying in the past, there will be some improvement, but we have to do something around that. Then Chapter 5 of the Municipal Structures Act then outlines the powers and functions of municipalities in terms of whether you are a district or a local or you're a metro. Then all of these things are then outlined within some of the prescript of legislation that we have. And in the overview of local government, we have the council, which is our councillors presided by the Speaker of Council. And then you have your executive committee, where others then have an executive mayor and the mayoral committee that forms a part of that. And then you've got your administration, which is represented by your accounting officer, which others then term the municipal manager or the city manager in other instances. Then obviously the various different departments that you can have in a municipality. So that's the hierarchy that you have within the municipalities. But obviously this is where the crux is, the supreme powers versed with the council. But then some powers can then be delegated to the mayor, and also some limited powers as well to the municipal manager or the administration, but that must be passed through council, through policy of the municipality, which, as indicated, must have been resolved for adopted by the council of that respective municipality. All right, one of the key things for local government is that point number 2, not saying that is not important, but this also becomes very, very critical, the provision of services to communities in a sustainable manner, because most of the protests that we see and experience is because we unfortunately not are receiving services in a sustainable manner. We get services, but then it gets interrupted, similar to what we're experiencing with ESCOM, load shedding and all of that. But also for municipalities the same, but it actually worse, because for municipalities there's not even a schedule of some disruptions that do take place, only minimal, and then obviously that becomes a very serious challenge with regards to that. These are the key things I just wanted to outline here quickly, that obviously provide services, which is the infrastructure and other related. But we have to ensure that we generate sufficient revenue as municipalities. So hence, when you talk sustainability, you cannot divorce the issue of finances into that, because there is repairs and maintenance. It must be undertaken. Repairs and maintenance require funds, and where do you get funds? Means there must be revenue out of that, because you can't all be relying on the grants of national government that actually come in. So when you render service, there ought to then be a revenue derived out of that, and revenue that can actually be realized out of that, not only just billing part, but receive the money, because currently municipalities are also owed over 120 billion, and the amount is escalating further, that is actually owed to municipalities across the country. But ultimately, at the end of it all, we must ensure service delivery does take place to our citizens. And then obviously there's been recent good talks around the issues of smart cities that is out there, where we need to be as a country. There's a few that are being lined up just to be built from scratch, but also the current ones as well that we have in the metros, trying by all means to align themselves to this concept of smart cities as we had last week. But everything that must be done must be efficient, must be effective, cost efficient, especially, and ensuring that you remove acquisition of items that don't add value to the municipality, but also items that where you're supposed to spend 10,000, you don't find a municipality spending 100,000 for something that is not worth. So there must be value for money, that what we refer to then as cost effectiveness that is required. And obviously as well, it must be economical, must make economical sense in all that is being done. But ultimately, it's all about the citizens out there. Hence, public participation, citizens' participation is equally important, and accountability in that respect. So as I just get to close off for now with this presentation, before I bring on Mr. Zonyane to touch on a few aspects, is the issue of the world of work. So with that understanding of the public sector at large, so as a student or as an aspiring public servant who still wants to be promoted, who still wants to be a manager somewhere, or perhaps an executive director somewhere, or a DDG or director general somewhere. So you have got to have that bigger picture understanding, because some discussions that then take place require you to have that understanding. Don't be myopic in your thinking, just thinking about where you are and what you are doing. But if you don't know where to connect that, then you could find yourself challenged in the future, when actually there are certain things that are required of you, then you can't perform them because you're not aware of the other elements that connect within the public sector or the public service. So now, just running briefly about the world of work that is required of those who are there, those who are aspiring to be there. I just wanted to start with this because everything now is taken overtaken by issues of technology, and we obviously see a number of these good things that are being said about technology. Just there's a few run-throughs that I've just put up here, like this first one. What is the meaning of life? I don't know. The computers are down, because everything now is about computers. We are on this virtual platform because we're making use of technology. So basically everything is run through that. Communication lines are through technology. We are on our phones, WhatsApps, the Facebooks, and everything. Everything now is all about technology. Just this other one, well, because their computer crashed, they wasn't buying online. Now they're just keeping to that and even walking around, buying in the shops the way they normally buy at home, because they're just at home and buying online. So if things go wrong, then we seem to continue thinking like that. And then obviously everything has passwords, and this a big gentleman basically has forgotten his password to his underpants. And then this is what is being said about the babies to be born in the future, where somehow perhaps because everyone is always on their phones, always on their laptops, then it means that there is no intimacy that may be required, and then it means that babies can only be born out of the intimacy with our technology that is actually out there. So that'll just touch on those things. We have to understand these things. We can't run away from it. That is where we are. That's the century that you are living in. These are the things that are there. But it's now then how to work around with these things that are there and understanding the generation that we are at. These younger ones, we always say they know better than us in terms of these high techs and everything else. So, but then there are certain fundamentals of life that you cannot take away. And you've got to always ensure that whatever that you do, you've got those fundamentals in place as a human being, as a public servant, to ensure that you still do that which is required. So just starting with this quotation, that public service must be more than doing a job efficiently and honestly, but it has to be a complete dedication to the people and to the nation. So this is also drawing from what I shared earlier by the President Ramaphosa. That is basically what we are aiming to inculcate and shall continue to inculcate to aspiring public servants and also those that are there. And I always say this, I live by it, something that I came up with a couple years ago, and it has been working wonders for me, that when you serve people wholeheartedly, and then people is the people that will actually elevate you to serve more people. When I mentioned of some of the structures that I serve in, to be quite honest, honestly, I never asked to be there, but because I've been serving all these years, then people have found me to be worthy to actually serve more people. And obviously serving more people means that there are positions that are entrusted to you, but it's just a call of serving and being there for other people. Also in government, that's it's all about. But the good thing is they actually get paid for it. There is a salary at the end of the month that you get paid for just for serving people. It doesn't mean that you must interact with the citizens directly, whether it's finance, whether it's being a clerk, whether it's in administration, whatever it is, as long as you're in government, you are there indirectly or directly serving the citizens of the country. So when you are in the office, what is expected of you as an aspiring public servant? You must have respect. Or if already you are there in the public service, you must respect everyone. Check your attitude, check your character. If something is wrong with you, if you're given work and you're frowning, well, you'll also be frowned upon when you want that promotion. So it all works hand in hand. So if you have a good attitude towards your work, then your work will also give you a good attitude by being promoted at some point in time, obviously following the due processes. But then if you are being negative towards your work in terms of your attitude, in terms of your character, then unfortunately that what will also follow your good self, negative outcomes. But if you are positive towards your work, your character traits are positive, your attitude is positive, I can assure with time, then you draw the positiveness as well unto your good self. This becomes very, very critical when you get into the workplace or you are in the workplace. Respect everyone in authority, respect those that are underneath you, respect those that they're not even working within your office. But as long as they're in the work environment, you're in the work environment, respect everyone. That becomes very, very important. Be professional. I made mention of the younger generation of nowadays. I know they like wearing some nice clothes, but in a work environment, even the way that you dress will actually tell you whether you are professional or not. Not saying now you must only be wearing coats like our good selves and shirts, but the way that you dress up would actually reveal whether you're professional or not. That is actually true. And also the way that you behave, the manner that you present your work, the way that you talk actually says something about yourself being professional or not. So there's a posture that you actually present when you are in a work environment so that you can be a professional. Because when you are there, now you're employed, you're a professional. You were a student before, but then you get into a workplace, you have got to ensure that all that you do resembles professionalism. I've made mention of the dress code. You have to ensure that you abide by the dress code of where you actually are. If you're wearing overalls, wear overalls. If you have to wear a good clothing, respectable clothing, you have got to actually do that. That actually counts because everyone is always watching. And I always say, you're actually writing your CV each and every day. One day you want to present that CV, but it's all about what you are doing today and tomorrow that actually counts to your favor. Your communication, how you write emails. Yes, we like our WhatsApp languages and all of that, but we have got to then check when we are typing those emails, when you're writing those reports that needs to be submitted, when we're doing those Excel spreadsheets, what are we communicating? Are we communicating professionalism in the way that we write report, in the way that we write emails, in the way that we communicate to our superiors? What is our communication? Does it indicate that we are respectful? Or maybe our communication just says, I can't work with this individual. So you've got to check and ensure that your communication is up to scratch. Time management, very, very vital. A lot of people are not very good at this. We have got to work on it. That's why you're always late, because you can't manage your time. Then you start having excuses. Then you start having reasons. Oh no, there was traffic. No, but you could have left a bit earlier. You just try to leave a bit earlier because traffic is always there. It's just an excuse. Just make sure always on my side, coming up the ranks for meetings, I'll always be 15 minutes early. I'll always try to do that so that even if something comes up along the way, at least I'll be on time. So over the years, obviously, I've got back-to-back meetings, becomes a challenge, but I always try and aim to ensure that I am on time. If I can be early, by all means, actually do that. Time management is very, very vital. And then as I close off on this, learn, and keep learning. You have got to keep learning at all times. Wherever you are, whatever that you're doing academically, yes, also in the professional space or where you are, keep on learning. I just outlined the public sector earlier. It's so big, it's so vast. There is so much that you can learn. You might be involved in one entity or one department or one municipality, but you can actually learn more about the others and how do they actually link to you. You may not be in treasury, but what is the works of treasury? How does it link up to what you do? What are the grants that are given to your entity? Get to understand all of those things, because one day you'll be in an interview. There's a panel that poses questions to you. You may not know some of the, what they are asking, but if you're able to showcase your broader understanding, then I can assure you that you actually stand a better chance than others who may know direct answers, because your mind is open. Your mind understands greater things than just what is there, meaning that whatever that you need to learn, you will learn and know it. So it's very, very important to always be acquainting yourself with the environment that you are at, learning and understanding things more. All right, so let me end there, and then later on I'll touch on a few aspects on the issue of ethics and the progressive person in the workplace. So at this time, I'm now going to end my presentation and then give a chance to Mr. Zonyane just to touch on a few things on what I have made mention, and then we'll give Prof even thereafter. We'll also touch on his side, and then I shall continue with my presentation, time allowing as well. But I'm hoping I will touch on a few aspects in that regard. So, Mr. Zonyane, on your side, just to add any inputs with what I've shared with regards to the world of work and what really our up and coming need to ensure that they abide by within the work environment. Over to you, sir.
Let me take this opportunity to thank you, Doc, for extending this invite. But most importantly, to those who have joined us today and those who might be accessing this recording at a later stage. I think you've captured it all, Doc, but there are some few salient issues that I want to reflect on as I complement and supplement that which you have already delivered. Firstly, it's wow. But by this wow, it's more the world of work that you are referring to. The world of work that our participants, our audience should be ready for, and some are ready for. But on the flip side of it, it's a wow because if you look at the recent past, the technological advancements, we talk of the fourth industrial revolution. I say the recent past in the sense that I often hear some of us saying we are still waiting for the fourth industrial revolution, which worries me at times, and especially if it comes from those whom we are looking at for them to advance leadership. That wow refers to the fact that this series has managed to reflect on the digital world, has managed to reflect on the smart cities that we really wish for in the future. And then the question is, how do we then begin to use the technology that is at our disposal to ensure that we contribute as professionals, we contribute as practitioners in terms of transforming our society using technology as an enabler. It is a responsibility that we all need to take up as these professionals, as these particular practitioners. And for us to be able to do that, Doc and fellow audience and my fellow panelists, Doc is correct to say we can't do it without, for an example, your social or interpersonal skills. I'll reflect just on one, which is teamwork, because he has reflected on some of them and quite a lot. I'm choosing teamwork for one purpose, that without teamwork, there is no integration. What integration I'm talking about? There's something that I call socio-economic service delivery model, which starts about saying, let's think in an integrated way, even before we plan in an integrated way. If we plan in an integrated way, having thought in an integrated way, it therefore means we will be able to implement those plans also in an integrated way. That will then ensure that we've got the integrated outcomes that we all aspire. But if there's no teamwork, as Doc has indicated, which really depends on all of us, it doesn't matter which level you are in. It depends on all of us to exercise that, to ensure that at some point we transform our communities. Having touched on that one interpersonal skill or a social skill, it's also independent skills, because the question will come. We are here, some of us as students, perhaps some of us haven't just graduated, and you can name it. The question will be, how do we then begin to develop these interpersonal skills that we talk about in this series and also in other platforms? It cannot be without those independent skills. For an example, your community participation. How active are you in the space that you live in? What contribution do you make, for an example, as a citizen in the IDP of your own municipality? So those are some of the things that will assist us as we ascend to leadership positions, to having gone and demonstrated that indeed we are community members, we can participate in the processes that governs us. Your civic responsibility, it applies to all of us. That is how you can be able to start to build these interpersonal skills so that you get ready for work when that opportunity comes. Gone, Doc, and my fellow panelists, that time of, yes, we know we've got unemployment, which is high, sadly, in as much as the states are promising, given the recent Stats SA report. Let's find things to do in our communities whilst we are looking for the jobs that we are looking for. Let's be active. Let's acquire these skills that we are talking about so that when we get to the workplace, it's things that are within you, are part of you, are part of the system. So these are all the building blocks, Doc, fellow audience, that I think as you ascend to leadership, as we ascend to leadership, we need to take into account, because even within leadership, and I'm talking about even those of you who might still be at varsity. As I've said, it starts at community level. You can exercise leadership through that active participation. Nobody says none of you can be a councillor come 2026. If you look at the young councillors that we have, we've seen what Councillor Baloyi has done in Midway. We've got many young councillors, even in this term of council. So don't look at yourself and say, probably I'll wait until I'm 50 years for me to. We need you in the system. We need the fresh blood. We need young and vibrant leaders who will be in a position to drive all these things that we say are shortcomings in our system. No, nobody says as you go through, as Doc has said, for you to get a promotion, there are certain traits that you have, certain skills that you must possess. In future, I would like to see, especially those that are still in varsity, especially those that just graduated, to see some of you occupying executive positions in our municipalities, executive positions in public service in general. It's possible, but it's dependent on how we conduct ourselves, how we run our businesses, as I normally refer to. But as I draw to the close, Doc, I often say in leadership itself, there are key things that should define you, me, or anyone else as a leader. If you are not a servant leader, for me, you might fail the test of you being a leader. It goes back to that public service. Are you in the public service to serve? And again, if you are in the public service to serve, those are the traits that as soon as you might be finishing your studies now, as soon as you might have graduated and looking for something to come, there's nothing that says you can't start serving through actively participating in the same municipal processes as a member and as a citizen of your locality. The series referred, Doc, to innovation at some point. Innovative leadership also depends on the fourth industrial revolution we referred to. For you to think innovatively, to be able to decode data, we talk of data analytics, those are things and the enablers of good decisions that should exist in the future. You need to be transformational as a leader. Those are some of the key traits that I believe as this cohort, I believe, as these foot soldiers that we are trying to mold for the future, Doc, you need to possess. And even if you feel you've got some, we learn until we die. As I close, I want to borrow from Utatomkulu, Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu, when he said, and I quote, do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. I think, let me leave it there, Doc, on that good note. And again, thanks for the great work that you and the team are doing. Thanks a lot.
No, siyabonga, siyabulela, Mr. Zonyane, with those good inputs that you have shared to us. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure that we can hear more as well later on, time allowed, because I know at 11 you will also be leaving us. So thank you so much, sir, for that input and sharing of your insight. At this time, let me then bring on Prof. Evan, the senior researcher at the Stellenbosch University, who will just be touching on a few aspects as well from the academic perspective and some of the research that he has undertaken, being involved with some municipalities within our country. We make mention of those things and then also add on to what we have been touching upon in a short while. But Prof. Evan, the floor is yours. So whatever that you want to touch base on, feel free, because I know that you do have much to say and want to get as much as you have. But obviously, I'll come in where I need to come in terms of time if we do get challenged. But for now, let's just put it as that you can proceed with what you wanted to share for us. Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay. No, you can hear me, I take it. Huh? You can hear me. Okay.
Certainly.
No. Good morning. First of all, I have to thank SPL at Stellenbosch University, and secondly, obviously, first of all, I have to thank very much those who invited me. I'm not a senior researcher at Stellenbosch anymore. I'm an extraordinary professor, whatever that means. I've got another job which I won't mention, but I can give you a hint when you see some of my articles which are published. First of all, I must say something because I really appreciate what have you done for me and for the university. What I'm prepared to do is that I've got about anti-corruption articles on municipalities. There are about 28 of them or so. For the last couple of years, right, since 2012. And I'm prepared anytime to send you whatever you want, or all of them at different times. So if you want to distribute them to academics and students who are interested to do masters, PhDs, honors, or whatever it is, right? And now I have to start. I won't mention anything about my life because my CV is only 42 pages. So I won't really bother you with these things. What I want to say is that a couple of things to start with, that the most important thing that a lot of people don't realize is one, that the realities of corruption are multidimensional. And first of all, we have to understand the corruption in society at large before we start doing research on municipalities, etc., etc. What I'm saying is that whatever you read in the newspapers, what the research has shown is that there are different types, there are different causes, there are different functions, there are different processes. Leadership, management, all these kind of things are very fundamental in understanding the deepness of these things and how to understand the corruption, first of all, in society at large, before you move into the public sector, the private sector, precisely because my belief is, my research has shown that corruption is based primarily, but not exclusively, on human and professional relationships. Point 2, on prevention and deterrence, strategies, tactics, plans, anti-corruption laws. Anti-corruption laws, you see, everybody knows that South Africa has one of the most developed anti-corruption laws, legislation, rules, regulation. But the problem is, how can you actually modify the ethics and behavior at all levels of municipalities, right? And this has to do with a couple of things, like point 1, the organizational culture that is developed by management, leadership, and the staff. Then it's accountability, employment strategies, management systems, and strategic interventions. I'll come into these things a little bit later. Now, first of all, I must start by saying something that everybody knows. No one, you are not born corrupt. You become corrupt. And this has a directly related to the individual relations and action which determine the ethics and corruption in both private sector and the public sector, especially in the public, precisely because it's the public economy, the needs, and the market determine the ethics of individuals and groups. Ethics and ethical behavior are determined by family, church, friendships, history, socialization, knowledge, personality, ideology, politics, education, and political upbringing. All these things, if we don't really study all these kind of things, how they exist in South Africa or in a specific municipality, we cannot understand the realities. The realities were coming a little bit later, right? First of all, we have to look at two very fundamentals in corruption. Point 1, the internal and the external forces. Because a mistake that has been made for many years in South Africa is that we point finger only to the municipal managers, the municipal CFOs, and the staff of a municipality. The reality is you cannot only point finger at them because they don't do all these things on their own. They do it with the private sector. We do it with mediators. These are realities which will come a little bit later, right? In the public service, leadership, structures, relationships determine the ethical behavior. Because if you have a corrupt municipal CFO, you know he can't do it on her own. And now, I'm sure those who are a little bit old or developed in age, they'll remember one of the most important and crucial examples of what I'm saying now. What I'm saying now is that it was in the first paper in the Sunday Times, in the city press, and all the newspaper in the country of a mayor of a municipality, no names mentioned, that got married at the same time with 6 wives. And Ilobolo, he paid and he bought each one of the 6 ones a Mercedes compressor. Now, at that time, the salary of the person was 850,000 a year. Now, can you justify what he did? No, we cannot, because in public service, leadership structures, relationships determine ethical behavior, because there are internal and external challenges, right? These deal with a lot of things. They deal with poverty, with leadership, with consciousness, promotions, misappropriation of assets, mediators. What are the antidotes of these things? Knowledge, understanding, integrity, solid management, training, professionalism, and culture. Now, we all remember, those who read the newspapers and follow what's really happening, you must remember that there is a national implementation framework, which is the professionalization of the public sector approved by Cabinet in 2020. Those who are here, who participate, obviously they remember it. Now, however, do we know at all how much this kind of very important rule, regulation, and legislation has been applied into the municipalities in the country? And I'll show you now why it has not, right? If you look at the 2021 AXA findings, right? Only 27 out of 257 municipalities got clean audits. 57 failed to complete the audits. 57 failed to complete the audits. 12 were disclaimed, 66 were qualified, 89 unqualified. In one municipality in the Eastern Cape, no names mentioned, one consultant was paid 27 million. And this municipality was one of the municipalities that actually could not justify 1,043 billion spent on grant allocations. Now, if you have these documents were well documented and rubber stamped by the Auditor General of the country, how can we understand the dynamics? Right. Now, the interference of politicians' corruption, administration corruption, became, as we all know, via the newspapers and the news, the situation became even more extreme during COVID-19. Now, what was there is the lack of innovative planning, the alleviation of gaps in infrastructure development, and above all, the situation with whistleblowers. I don't have to go into there, precisely because we know the very well-known whistleblowers who made the news, unfortunately, they were either fired or they were shot dead. Now, what I want to say is, how can we actually fight against all these things? What I have done all these years is the creation of a toolkit, you see. What can really happen there and how it can happen, right? Point one, it is in the hands of the leadership and management of every municipality to understand, to assess the reality, the nature, and the extent of corruption and where it takes place. That's the most important thing. People will tell me I'm talking nonsense because it's individuals who do the things. But the question is, these individuals cannot do it on their own. When you actually point a finger at the structure and the fact and the development and the process of supply chain, who do you blame? Who do you blame? Do you blame the head? Do you blame the CFO? Do you blame you understand what I'm saying? When you start building the institution, the municipality, you have to be aware of how the anti-corruption system of the country operates. Because when you find out that there is something that happens which is corrupt, you have to know what are the anti-corruption agencies, what is the role of the Auditor General, the Ombudsman, the judicial corruption, the public service reforms. Public participation is very crucial. Now, my question is, from what we know, how many of the municipalities are very serious in actually consulting and talking and negotiating with their citizens, you see. Now, the public service situational prevention, right? The public officials' assets and liabilities, disclosures, supply chain and procurement, corruption, procedural complexity, employment motivation and culture. Now, when we do all these kind of things, one of the most important realities is the societal prevention. How do we know and how do you deal when we actually employ somebody? And this is a key thing that was found in only one newspaper in the Eastern Cape. There is a case of a person who started, first of all, as a municipal manager in a municipality. He was caught, he spent 3 years in prison for corruption. When he came out, he also became, in the second different municipality, as a CFO. After 3 years, he was found of corruption. He spent another 1.5 years. After he came out from there, he came out. Then, after about 6 months, he became the chief advisor to the CFO of another municipality. Now, in a situation like this, when we talk about corruption, and I give you one or two cases like this, you realize how difficult the situation is. When you do research, you are lucky because you can find all these things. But now the question arises, the average person in the Mjondolos or the persons who live in a rural area, do they know anything about that? And what do you expect them to do? This is how I see it. We have to build a tool leading to a successful investigation strategies. About 5 weeks ago, I was a speaker at the African Union anti-corruption organization. And I can tell you something, 5 top speakers from 5 different countries spoke besides me. And I can tell you something, you won't believe it. Each one of the 5 spent between 5 and 10 minutes pointing out that what is really lacking within municipalities and national governments is intelligence. Now, after I heard the 5 speakers talking about intelligence, you see, within the particular organization, I didn't say anything. But possibly, we have to actually how to monitor the assets and the financial investigations, how to understand and apply the anti-corruption legislation, and how we develop a specific 3 or 4 people organization on monitor and evaluation what's really happening. Now, obviously, what I'm saying now, I'm really prepared to listen to questions and go a little bit further. But this is what I have to say. And I'm positive that quite a lot of the particulars of the participants have learned these things. But my feeling was that my presentation was a little bit far out, precisely because it pointed out something that I feel has not really been researched fundamentally, right? And then I can give you the final example so you see how some of these things operate. I was very happy to be. I was very much impressed when I was called by one of the major, if not the major, anti-corruption agency in the country, which I won't mention. And myself and my then director flew in Johannesburg to meet them, and we gave them a proposal of how to train the people. And when we pointed fingers at what we saw was the problem in the research we found at that time in 2017, I think it was, we went over there and they listened to us very carefully. I must say, about 10 of them, including the director, the chief director, and all these people. And we told them this, and everybody felt very, 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 very impressed, right? And then after we finished, we had a coffee with the director, and the director said, "No, it's good that we are alone now, Prof. Now do me a favor, please. I need a favor from you." I reckon, "No, what can I do for you?" He says, "Listen, my brother, I need for my organization here, I need a very, very specific research-based training course for my staff." I reckon, "Okay, which one?" He told me leadership. I reckon, "You mean anti-corruption leadership?" He reckon, "No, leadership at large." So I just kept quiet, and then we finished the coffee and we left. And I have quite a lot of things that happen during our meetings with the presidency and other organizations, but I won't go into there because, to my mind, it's a little bit sad. I must thank you very much, and I'm prepared to take any questions. And what I said earlier, I repeated. If it's needed for any of you and those who lead to us to have a direct contact with us, or I can send all the articles of most of the articles if you need them to find out what is the nature of our research and our findings. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Prof. That was quite a mouthful, so they say. And obviously, the good part about it is ensuring that whatever that you talk on is not just hearsays, but it all based on the certain things that have happened and you've drawn from that, obviously from your good background of research that actually assisting us. But before I let you go, I just want to check something here as to what is the role that truly academia can play with regards to changing the culture, especially in our public service. Obviously, with all of this understanding, all of this data that we've been collating over the years, but how to actually now take that and find a way of using it to change a culture within the public service? Because obviously history is good and has taught us certain things. Then how to use it going forward? Because we already have and understand all of these dynamics at hand.
No, thanks for the question. No, I mean, I was expecting the question. You see, the most important thing in a situation like this is if you I'm sure that's your job, and you got a PhD and all that. Very happy for you. And now you see, if you go into the public administration sector of every university in the country, especially the big ones, right? The 4 or 5 big ones, right? And you actually find out the training courses, right? I'm sure that, I mean, I don't have time to check all these things anymore, like in the last 6 months or so. I'm too busy. You'll find out that each one has a training session on integrity, humanity, anti-corruption, these things. And then it's obviously, plus, I'm sure one of my most favorite ex-students, Professor Busani Ngaweni, he's now the chairperson or the director, whatever you call them, of the School of Governance, right? So I'm sure the School of Governance also have, I mean, we talk occasionally on the phone with him or we send some messages, but I'm not really sure whether, whether they have something anti-corruption and all these kind of things. But it's important precisely because people must understand the dynamics of corruption, not necessarily only in a functional way. It has to do also with human feelings and relationships and all these kind of things. But you cannot expect, for example, a CFO who doesn't understand the economics and the realities. That's why you see I mean, this municipality, how this municipality can still survive when they pay 27 million to one consultant. I mean, unless the man or the lady who's the consultant is a god. No, if it was God, I mean, I will pay him 55 million to do a good job. You understand what I'm saying? And sometimes when you look at the situation of some of the most beautiful countries in the world, which one mentioned, I mean, I can't pronounce this one. I can't pronounce, apologies. There's one city, when I was traveling a lot, when I was much younger, you see, I love the city because it's near the sea and all that. It's not Cape Town. It's like somewhere else, right? I can't pronounce it now, but if you see what's really happening now in the municipality, and the other thing one must take into account is the relationship now amongst the political parties and all the damage that is created by the alliances. I mean, coalitions they call them. Like, they're not coalitions, they're alliances. I just finished an article which will be published in the next couple of what is wrong with, yeah. But I can't go into trying to find out whether electoral legislation must change. Like, this is not my field. I'm sure there are quite a lot of people in you mentioned Professor, the professor at Stellenbosch University. Yeah.
No, thank you, Prof. As I said, the good thing is that you're just articulating these things, bring them to the fore, because it's happening, it's out there, and obviously that's why we're starting these initiatives, because we really have to find some solutions, going forward, and ensure that, as you rightly mentioned, the professionalization of our public service, that we are all, embarking upon. I'm involved to an extent more from the public finance perspective, and we are trusting that even the issue of the ethical culture actually has to change within our public servants, because things are quite bad, and as you say as well, and what you have picked up and looked at, not only those who are being charged, especially you make mention of some case where the one mayor, I won't mention the name, it's only the mayor and the municipal manager that is in the forefront. But what about others that are involved in the process, in the transactions of those things? So some of what we need to then look at going forward. So, but thanks for those insights. Don't run away. I'm sure that you still will be with us. I want to bring in Mr. Daniel Nolte. I know that he has been listening as well to this, and I just want to also share his input. And then thereafter, I will run through my other last presentation. I won't be too long again on it, and then we can have further discussions around the subject matter of today. Mr. Nolte, are you around?
Thank you, Dr. Ngcobo. I have been listening attentively to all the presentations, and it's very interesting. I think we're talking about a critical part of the problems that we are experiencing in the country. It's definitely the human resources setup and the leadership in that part. As you know, I'm involved with the Center of Municipal Asset Management, even though I come from a long history with municipalities. I was at one stage a registered town clerk, and I've been a registered municipal accountant, and I'm an old member of SIGFARO, who used to be Info. So my background is quite a lot in financial management, but I don't say it too loudly too often, but I used to work for the Auditor General as well. So I was involved in unearthing some, very dubious transactions over the years. But I've for the last 20 years, I've specialized in asset management. And for me, that is a critical area that is not afforded the necessary attention, because the interaction between human resources and assets, that is how we achieve what Zolani was mentioning, the social, economic, service delivery plan, the needs of the community, as it's identified in section 152 of the Constitution. So that's those two elements very critical in achieving the constitutional mandate, and the one is as important as the other. So for me, because my passion is regarding asset management, I see it. Yes, it can't do anything without the human involvement. There must be people managing it, and if they mismanage it, then obviously that it goes wrong, and we have service delivery protests and all sorts of things like that. I think the service delivery protest part of what's happening in the country is maybe more indicative of the problems we have than the reports issued by the Auditor General. The Auditor General does things, basically they focus on compliance only and not necessarily on service delivery, so they do it as they do tests, on a limited number of transactions, etc. So they don't always uncover the whole, but that they have identified, and some municipalities have come out and acknowledged what is termed UIF and W. I'm not sure if everybody knows the term. Unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. If you look at those numbers, I think if we add up what's been happening in the country, we can get close to paying Eskom's debt, because we've wasted such a lot of money. I mean, there's huge numbers involved in that. There is an opportunity for us now to change things, and I've been, bringing the subject up a few times now that we have new councils in place, recently elected. They didn't have much opportunity to frame new plans, and if I say frame new plans, go through the process of looking at the strategies. What do we need to do to fulfill our constitutional mandate? And then the tool for the municipalities, it's what's termed the integrated development plan. That is the medium term and longer term plan that is utilized by municipalities. So the councils now have the chance to totally revamp that if they want. They should look at that and look first at what is it that we need to supply in terms of the Constitution. I think you, Dr. Ngcobo, indicated, yes, that's the foundation. We need to look at that there. And then there's obviously, the determinations in terms of the Structures Act. The municipalities must identify that first. And there's another tool that's come about now, which I believe we can use, and I'm saying we from the technocrat division to convince politicians to also play this at the same rules, is the municipal staff regulations. That was promulgated in the Gazette last year in September, and it is signed. It's become effective from July 2022. And there's quite elaborate direction there on how to go about, establishing, your organogram or your workforce there. It must be in a planned fashion. So for me, these two things can now run together. We can have a look at, what do we need as far as the assets are concerned, but then we must join in with that, what do we need as far as the HR is concerned. The one thing that I know and I've identified that I've been involved on a provincial level, assisting municipalities with asset management, and noticed that there is definitely a lack of capacity, a knowledgeable capacity as far as asset management is concerned. That's a very critical area. It's the biggest number on the balance sheet, and it's the only tool that municipalities have in delivering services. There's not dedicated people for that, and there's also not cooperation at a municipal level, by the management teams on how do we go about this. So we actually now at that stage in the country's history. We're standing, at the doorstep of going into a new phase where we can say, let's plan, let's go and get all these plans together. The thing is, we can convince councils to accept that because it's all legislated. We're not making a plan here in a back room and saying this is what we should be doing. It's legislated that we have to follow, we have to comply. And I've spoke about the AG, looking at compliance. Yes, this is legislation. We have to comply with it. So I think we can use that, the tools. And then there's quite a lot of detail in the staff regulations regarding recruitment and developing staff and retaining staff and all of that. So it fits in with where we're looking at young people and getting them involved. If they're passionate enough, if they have the background, then we can get them involved in the municipal environment. I noticed one of the questions, one of the questions was about a young person who has a problem. How do you get involved in municipalities? And I think perhaps the attitude from the younger people, I have a degree, so I must now become a manager, and I can't support that. I think everybody, whatever qualifications you have, you need experience. I know from when I graduated originally, I stepped into the office of the Auditor General and was absolutely clueless. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had to spend time gaining the knowledge. So for me, if you want to be the CFO, you must know how the cashier works. You must know how the creditor's clerk, work with the documentation. And I think that you have to accept. If you just come off with the theory, you have to gain the necessary knowledge. There are some internship programs, and I think perhaps that's the National School of Government or the national departments can look at that as well. How can we, promote that more? To get some practical experience for all the young people. To get them to slowly work them into the municipal environment, because there is lots of expertise needed. But it's not only the expertise, it's the attitude, that willingness to serve the public, not the political masters. That's what we do. We serve the public, and I think that's critical. I've heard one CFO, he was very frustrated, and I think there was a comment as well on the chat that not all municipal officials are corrupt. That is absolutely true. There are many, many dedicated persons still in the municipal environment. Unfortunately, they're interspersed with people that are not necessarily, correctly aligned to what an attitude should be. But this one CFO was talking about poll officials. And for me, the term, and that is really, it was in his case, his whole department was interspersed with people that were politically appointed with the intent, like the Prof you referred to. It has to be a group of people working together, and that is what happened there. They were appointed with the intention to steal. I don't have a better word for it. So we have to make sure that we use the legislation from a technocrat point of view to get the politicians to agree, especially now as new councils. Let's get them to agree to play by the rules. These are the rules. This is what we need to follow. Let's make a new plan. Let's start fresh and do everything clean. I don't think we're going to recover all the billions that have already gone. So unfortunately, in Eskom, we can't pay you there.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Thank you so much. I'm sure you'll come in again later on, because one gentleman, I think was from National Treasury, he once made mention that we are fixing the plane that is already airborne, because we can't stop municipalities from functioning or rendering services, but we have to fix local government. That's basically where we stand. I know that Mr. Zonyane will be leaving in a short while, but Mr. Zonyane, I just want you to, before you run away, just touch on this question that was posed. Just want to pick it up here on the chat box. It was from, okay, no, he put it, yeah, Even Claims from Cape Town. He said, I really appreciate the discussion taking place because it is much needed. Harsh realities on the floor are that as youngish Black educated persons, we don't get the opportunities to serve in executive and senior management levels. Those levels are unfortunately flooded with the elderly. I hope we're not referring to ourselves like me. I've got gray hair as well. Those levels are unfortunately flooded with the elderly and those gearing their retirement benefits and salaries, and those who have no desire to change things for the better. Then this is the question, Mr. Zonyane, perhaps you can just on a high level touch upon how do we get us, the younger ones, the younger educated ones, the opportunity to step into these positions. What could be your perspective on that? I know Mr. Daniel Nolte has touched on it, but as a way for departing short, perhaps you can then come through on that.
So thanks once more, Doc, and let me thank Ivan for that question. It's a good one, and it is also relevant for this chat, Doc, in so many ways. If one looks at the submission I made, for an example, it talks about us playing our role within our communities. Where I'm going with this narrative, Ivan, is that until such time we are that active as the youth or as the young citizens. Myself, I'm no longer young. It is us who go, for an example, to the polls to elect the very same leaders that then appoint the very same old executives that you are referring to. It is for that reason, therefore, that I'm saying, until such time, as young as we are, let me assume I'm young as well, we get to participate in the municipal processes. I think Mr. Nolte touched on that as well. That equips you not only for the world of work that we're talking about, but also to ensure that within the municipal governance value chain, that's how I call it, you start by being a citizen. As I've made a quote from the old man, Utatu Tutu, Uguti, the little contribution you do in your corner, even if it's about identifying those leaders within your community and support them, or if there are initiatives within your community, you join and support. That's the building blocks of you becoming one day that executive at a young age without being overlooked. until we participate at that particular level. Let's not look now at where we are, because that's the problem we're trying to solve, I believe. We are now building the skills for the future. We are building those leaders that must take over from the old that you are referring to. But that's not going to happen in a vacuum. I intentionally made a reference to 2026 when I was making my submission as well. That's when the local government elections will be held. A question that I'll pose, or each of us must ponder on, as I plan now for 2026, well, what type of a leader do I want to see ascending to that office? That will then ensure that selection processes are not biased towards those whom we call old, but those processes are biased to those who will be able to deliver to the younger people who understand the complexity of the problems that we are sitting with. It's not an easy solution, but that's what I can offer, Doc, for the purpose of responding to Isaac.
No, thank you, sir.
Yes, as old as you may be, Doc, but I know you are not old. Until we build that capacity from the community level, then to the municipality as an institution, then we will be able to try and solve some of the issues that Ivan has raised. I want also to touch on a chart. I believe it came from quickly Umlamli, referring to the principles and processes focusing specifically on our education and training. That question was answered in a webinar I believe you had earlier this year, because I tend to follow these webinars when I have time during my spare time, just to get a sense of what are the conversations. In that particular webinar, a point is made by academics that indeed the current curricula, not only at basic education level, but also at tertiary education level, it needs to be reviewed so that it accommodates the realities of today, so that the system doesn't produce the skills that will then say, but no, these skills are not fit for building this economy or for building this country that you say we must build. It's a question of now, how do we move from conversations to actions? That's what we need to do. And I believe that webinar was explicit on what needs to be done. There was clarity on what needs to be done, specifically from the institutions like TUT, which is also part of this collaboration. It's just a matter of taking those recommendations, putting them to action to ensure that whether you are in humanities, what other skills you need, for an example, for you to be work ready when you exit the education system. It's not a case of you are in humanities, you only understand humanities. What other trades should be embedded or infused in the curriculum to make you work ready when you come out of the institutions that you are in? That's the responses I can sponsor, Doc, and thanks once more for this opportunity.
No. Thank you, sir. That was, very good for us as well. I like that notion that you just put up, from conversations to action, because definitely, as much as we can engage here and have all these good words being shared, but we want to see a difference at some point in our public service. And I believe that with all of this that we are doing, initiatives, the communication channels that we have opened up between the stakeholders, ourselves, as the public service of a local government perspective, and the academias, as I said earlier, and part of what this series is about, blending theory with practice to even ensure those who are up and coming can actually be fitting into that. I've also noted, before I proceed further, that Ivan has touched on that his question was more for those already in the system. So Ivan, I will also touch on that when I'm going through my presentation in a short while. Then hopefully we'll be able to answer you as much as appropriately we can in that regard. But also, so at this time, if I can just allow, I know Mrs. Zonyane, you're going to be running away. So thank you so much once again. I'm going to run through my last part of the presentation. I won't be too long because most issues have been covered, especially from the ethics perspective by Prof. Evan. So I will just touch on a few other things in terms of personal leadership, and then we can continue with some of these discussions that we are having. But this becomes important for us to ensure that we close off in terms of what we wanted to achieve for today. So in terms of a progressive person in the workplace, because this also will assist in addressing the question posed by Ivan, one key thing that when you get into a work environment, or already you are there, yes, for further positions, you need to have an academic qualification, NQF 7, 8, the masters, even PhDs for that matter. For some positions actually require that, but also you need to be competent enough for that position. Not by virtue that you can talk and all of that, but you need to be technically competent to perform the particular duties or functions that you have actually been entrusted upon, or even that which you aspire for. Because when you go for an interview, they don't ask you questions of what you are doing, but they ask you questions of where you are going and what you're actually aspiring to get into. But importantly, with all of that, competent as you may be, qualified as you may be academically, but then also from a personal leadership or personal mastery, there are certain principles that must be embedded within your good self and ensure that whatever that you do, you've got those fundamentals or foundations in place as an individual and aspiring for promotions in that respect. Importantly, in terms of your technical ability and know-how, when you're in government, hence I started with the Constitution, the governing frameworks, legislation that is out there is one of the cornerstones, because if we're talking rules of the game and ensuring that everything that we do is according to that, then it becomes a guide as well, ensure that we don't do what is against the law, because what is against the law obviously then touches on the issues of being unethical in that which you have to undertake. Somebody said this, Brian Herbert, if you want to learn, the capacity to learn is a gift, the ability to learn is a skill, but then the willingness for that is actually a choice. It's all up to us. We are where we are, we've had to learn, we are learning, we are relearning, we are unlearning, because there's so much to actually take and absorb that is out there, new things that we are learning each day. I'm looking forward to the articles and the material that Prof. Evan will share. I'm going to go through those things. I'm going to learn from that as well and get to know and understand better what is happening out there. So what are these fundamental life skills that we've been talking about and touching upon? Part of it is being responsible. We have got to take responsibility. Don't always have excuses and always looking at the negative side. I can't do this because of that. Just go and do what needs to be done. As Mr. Zonyane was talking about, you've got to participate. I always say when you are young, you must be willing to be used. Be willing to be used, because when you are used, you get to learn. When you are used, you get to gain experience. When you are used, you get to learn something that you are not going to learn if you are not being used. But you can only be used if you raise your hand and you want to participate. So I mentioned earlier that I myself, I'm a passionate public servant. I'm passionate, but also you need to be patient in what you actually aspire for. But then for you to get to where you want to be, you need to participate. Because when you participate, then you gain more. But then that says you are a responsible individual, and that is required of you for where you want to go. Then you must be reliable. If you're given a task, you must be able to perform the task. Nobody must be there now chasing after you to say you need to do this, you need to be somewhere at a certain point in time. Just be reliable. Because when you are reliable, then you can be entrusted with more things. Then you can be entrusted with more positions, because you are known to be a reliable individual. That becomes very important. You must be honest. We have touched on those things from an ethical point of view. You have got to be an honest individual, because if you are not honest, especially with little things, Imagine when you get to a management position, when you are a manager, when you can sign off certain acquisitions, when you can sign off certain payments. If you're not honest in the little things, then you won't be honest with the larger things when there are now monies that needs to be paid. And if you're not honest, it could be easy for you then to be dishonest and perhaps take some monies for self-interest or for other wrong reasons. So you've got to be an honest individual. You must be focused, know where you want to go, and everything that you do leads to where you want to go. What you have set for yourself, the goals that you have set for yourself, the objectives that you have set for yourself, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, where you want to go. So meaning that every action, every step that you take leads towards that. So you have to be a focused individual. You also have to be disciplined. There's a lot of ill-disciplined people out there, especially the younger ones. You have got to be one of those who can control yourself. Self-control becomes important. You have to be disciplined. Also, don't be clumsy. Don't be a chaotic individual. Be organized. Know where your things are. I know others normally say, come to my desk. Things may be everywhere, but I know where things are. No, you've got to be an organized individual. You may have too many things in your desk or even in your life, but know where things are properly. They must be stored properly. You've got to be an organized individual. Be a person of excellence. Be known as a person of excellence, because one day there are certain things that will be required, and people who want to go to somebody that can produce something that will show that this is an excellent product, an excellent outcome can actually come out of this individual. So that becomes very, very vital. In brief, these are just the summary of what I've touched upon. Be a responsible individual, be reliable, be honest, be focused on your goals, be disciplined, be organized, and be known as a person of excellence. Everything that you do must say your standard must be a standard of excellence. Everything that you touch. Yes, you may not be excellent in certain areas right now, but then you can work towards producing excellent output, excellent outcomes. But we have got to inculcate that to your good self, that you want to be known as a person of excellence. Then excellence becomes your standard, because once you have that life skill, then it's a matter of just keeping on building upon it as time goes by. So we have touched on these critical areas, being competent technically in terms of your work. You must be qualified. You must continue to study academically, get more qualifications, and keep on learning academically. You must have these fundamental life skills we're talking about, but always be progressive in where you're going, but you're being progressive within an ethical culture, within your good self. Because if you don't have these things, it means that your foundation has some problems, and you've got to ensure that you underpin those foundations as a human being, because someday you'll be in a very high position, and if you're not ethical, you will come down, crumbling down in a very, very high speed. So the ethics that Prof was talking about, it's the moral principles that govern the person's behavior or the conduct of a particular activity. It is defined, I think it's the Oxford, if I'm not mistaken, that defines ethics as that moral principles that govern a person's behavior. So what is your behavior in certain activities? What is your behavior in your work environment? Does it say that you've got good principles, you've got an ethic culture within your good self? Your behavior is talking to that. If not, then you've got to recheck and ensure that you readjust yourself to what needs to be. Honesty I've touched on. Be a person of integrity. Keep your promises. Be a trustworthy person. Be loyal. Be fair. Because if you are unfair, then obviously there's something that is not right in that. Have concern for others. Have respect for others. Be a law-abiding citizen. I've indicated this. Be committed to excellence and ensure that you can lead yourself. You can't be a leader, you can't be a director, you can't be a manager at some point if you can't lead yourself. How can you lead other people if you can't lead yourself? Then that's why personal leadership then becomes very, very important for your good self. The great, I call him President Barack Obama, said these words: if you are walking down the right path and willing to keep walking, eventually you will make the progress at some point in time. Just keep on doing that which is right. Keep on, because the others want to take shortcuts. No, that's not the path to take. Take the right path, because if you keep at it, the little progress that you make, little steps that you may take, but eventually you will land and be where you actually want to be. So just again, in a nutshell, about a progressive person, have a goal, be responsible, see the best in others, not only about yourself. Life is not only about yourself, but see the best in others. Be a solution-oriented person as much as you can. Don't only see problems, because they are just individuals that everything is about problems. Yes, you must acknowledge problems that are out there, but then also have solutions that you can present and find a way of addressing those problems. Ask the right questions at all times. If you don't know, you ask. And when you do ask, then you get to know what you did not know. So always ask the right questions. In such platforms, there's an opportunity here with experienced personnel. There's a Prof, Mr. Zonyane, Mr. Nolte is mentioning his years of experience within the sector, public sector. So if there's a question you may want to pose, feel free, make use of the opportunity that is out there, and be found to be a good listener. A lot of people just want to talk and talk and talk, but they can't listen. They don't want to listen. Or even if they listen, they don't want to understand. They don't want to comprehend. Be a good listener, comprehend, so that you can be able to then respond accordingly. Well, this is also very important. I wanted to put it here. To be a progressive person that will lead you to being a good leader, you must wake up early. A lot of people don't wake up early, then their whole day then is messed up because they're sleeping late. Then obviously wake up late. You can have fun. Fun is good, but be responsible in the fun. When you are playing, you play. When it's work, you work. But make sure that you do wake up early so that you can ensure that you're not late in anything. Let go of past mistakes, past failures. Don't be defined by the past. Be defined by where you're going. Be focused to where you are going. Because a lot of people then look at then they get stuck there. No, just readjust yourself. Ensure that you still have your goals. You still know where you're going. Let go of the past and then head to where you want to go. And lastly, importantly, retain value. You've got to retain value. What do I mean by that? Once you have accumulated some respect, accumulated some knowledge, make sure that you don't lose focus, and ensure that once you are known to be that individual, you have worked on all of these things that I've made mention of them, you retain that. You have actually even further look at growing that further. But don't now be sidetracked. Don't be distracted, because when you're distracted from your cause, then you lose value. All that which you have attained, all the time that you have worked towards, then you can actually lose it because of unwise decision. You can lose that because of wrong choices that you could actually be making. You've got to ensure that you retain value. This is my last slide on this presentation. Without continual growth and progress, if you want improvement, achievement, success, unfortunately, it cannot be. There's got to be continual growth and progress in all that you do. Start now. You are here. You've learned a few things. Ensure that you keep on growing. Ensure that you keep on progressing. And then certainly at some point in time, surely you shall be successful. Surely you will be where you want to be. So with those words, thank you so much for listening to my short presentation. I've tried to keep to time as possible, and I believe that I have done that justice. So at this time, I just want to then give Prof Evan as well, if he then wants to add anything into this discussion. I can see now we've also now been joined by Dr. Pillay from DUT, and he may want to touch on a few aspects about that work integrated learning. I've asked him to just join us for this session as well, and then we'll close off thereafter. So, Prof, even from your side, any further input from all that which we have discussed in the later part of today? Over to you, Prof.
I'm unmuting. Okay. No, thanks very much. No, I mean, I learned quite a lot. But you know, the question is, one young person asked the question, how young people can actually get a job when they are ethical and good and all that. And I have to say this. One nice person. Thanks for quite a few of them came for me. One of them says that it was the person, young person, obviously. He said that it was tough. He used another word. I don't remember it now. I'll give you an example. You see what I say to the young people. In the 80s, you see, in the 80s, in the 90s, after 1994, I had a sociology class of 300 people, and public policy 300, 350 people at UKZ10, UDW and UKZ10, right? So now one of the most vocal persons there, because he was coming from a very, very big family, he asked me, how can I get a job in the, Prof, how can I get a job in a municipality? I said, the first step you do in 1995, 96, I told him, the first step, you go to Kwamashu and you join the ANC branch. This man, he was big and handsome, and he says, but Prof, I don't need that. I reckon, why? I reckon, because me, I'm the son of a Amakosi in Limpopo. I reckon, so what? That was the position at that time, and it was basically a combination of a joke and a serious thing, right? Because that's how the system works and still works now.
Sorry, Prof. So basically, he had a sense of entitlement in him that like a job must be given because.
No, but if I can tell you something, those people who listen to us, they won't believe it. This man now, he's done so well. He runs a massive business in Polokwane, and in every 3 or 4 weeks or something, once a month he calls me to catch up to see how I feel, if I'm sick or. I mean, he runs about 7 cell garages, 7. But possibly it paid that he was the son of a Amakosi, you see. I don't know. But you see, my feeling to the young people now is, you go to a proper university, first of all, in South Africa, and you do your research first, what you want to do in life, and what are the basic courses and the basic directives you take. Because my feeling is the way the world is changing, you see, it's very important to choose what you want to do, right? And the first thing is that that's why you mentioned TUT and DUT, and I can tell you something from my side. I've got a lot of, in the last like 3-4 years, because that's what my job, I follow what's really happening in these universities. You see, I have a high respect for the DUT and for TUT, precisely because, okay, TUT, for example, they got one of the most important debates with the Journal of JOPA, Journal of Public Administration. Basically, it gives new directives. Quite a few of the people over there, professors and lecturers and everything, has gone very high in terms of production, productive production, and all these kind of things. I think it's all up to the young people to decide. But as I mentioned, possibly I overdid it on this one, where you come from and how you build up, how's your relationship with the wider community, you see, because the problem is, when I actually do research on primary schools and high school, my wife is very upset with me because I start crying because of the situation that's really happening in the schools, how the schools operate and all these kind of things. And obviously municipalities have nothing to do with the schools, because this is a different kind of obligation, governmental obligation. But when you feel for people, you see, you want to give advice to the young people how to carry on. And I think ethics, you see, ethics is like vital. And as I said earlier, it all depends on family, it depends on society, how society is structured, and what's really happening. I mean, that's what I have to say, because sometimes I become very emotional. There was the person who wrote about me that I was a little bit. He mentioned a very nice word, like about what I said. I tell him one
So the
thing,
word
right?
was bleak. Bleak.
Yeah, bleak. Yeah, no, thanks a lot. No, it was bleak, right? No, I said, my brother, I have to say two words, no, three words. Truth is always revolutionary. It was written it was written in prison by a guy called Antonio Gramsci. Truth is always revolutionary. You can't really say no to the truth. That's what I have to say. The situation is bleak. If you don't believe that, I don't know. Just bleak, yeah.
Yeah,
But
no,
you see,
I'm with you,
the
Prof. I'm with you.
no, the worst thing we can do, doctor, is we can never lose our hope. But in order to build up the hope for us and for our friends and for our families and for the country, we have to fight for the hope. We can't really just keep back and say, so what? You see? Yeah, that's my feeling.
No, 100%, Prof. And that is why I said earlier, some of us, we're going to get grayer within this space until we can see some change. And also importantly, because it has taken years to be where we are, and the challenges and problems and obstacles that are there. And it also do take quite a number of years to address the situation. So we also want to ensure that we can develop other leaders that can also take after ourselves when we do retire, when we do, collect a day at some point in time. So we just want to make sure and ensure that at a later stage that becomes so. So I just want to give Mr. Zonyane, I know that before he runs away, he wanted just to touch again on that question that was posed by Ivan, and then he will leave us. And then thereafter, I will bring in Dr. Pillay from DUT, the head of department for the School of Public Management and Economics, who will just touch a bit on the issues of the will that I touched upon earlier for the students. Mr. Zonyane?
As I part, Doc, it will be improper for me if I don't thank you once more, together with Dan for this particular session. And what I'm picking up, because I've been following them up, I think, since 2021, there is interconnectedness ranging from those that took place in 2021. You take this series to the one I referred to that took place earlier this year. Two things as I exit Doc. Firstly, to the likes of Kajal. By the way, I used to work with her. She is one of those, if you may like, you can say she belongs to the elders. But my experience within the elders, there are those like Kajal and Omden, Mr. Nolte, who have taken it upon themselves to evolve with the system. As old as they may be, they still have the pulse of what needs to be done, not what needs to be done, but they are actually doing it. Hands up to you, Kajal, and your cohort. And I think, Doc, in as much as, for an example, this particular session focuses more on the younger to be public servants, there ought to be sessions that will be dedicated to the likes of Kajal and her cohort, as I've said, to exactly deal with the current challenges that we have with the system, because the issue that Ivan is raising as a follow-up to say by his comment or question, it was more outward looking as opposed to inward looking, or inward looking as opposed to outward looking. Which then brings me to what I made in my submission to say, without you and me, Ivan, as these citizens, there's no municipality. It therefore says we can't divorce ourselves from the running of a municipality. It therefore says if we want to see the change, let us be the change that we want to see, because we are as part of that municipality as anything else. And I want to say again, I made a reference to 2026 on purpose, Doc and fellow audience and the panelists. We won't change the system tomorrow. It doesn't matter what we do today. It's that long-term thinking, that long-term planning on, we are here now, we are sitting with these challenges. In a space of, let's say, 3 to 5 years, what is it that we can start doing today to change the situation in the 6th year? That long-term thinking is one of probably the best solutions to say, we are here now, as I say. And until that older person who's in the system decides, I want to take an early retirement, the law protects him or her to say, you shall be in that position until you get to that particular point. Hence, it then links to how do we then begin to play our role, for an example, where we are, but not to say we want to change the system now. How do we start to take actions now that will ultimately influence the change and deliver the future that we want to have? I think on that note, Doc, let me pause there. And I believe and hope that you will continue the session with quite, I would say, good inputs, because the audience is participating. They give us things to think about, maybe some we have not. Those are the things then that we should say, how do we then build from here for this future that we want to see in this particular country. Thanks a lot once more, Doc. Until we see each other next time.
All right, no, Siyabulela, and also just for mentioning that we have done a good job in the past. We appreciate those comments. And I also just seen a chat that somebody also wants sight of these. You can get them at the Future Cities Africa website. Everything is normally posted there. We also have as well at the Municipal Age some of the postings of what we've undertaken in the past. And then we'll always share these recordings as well via email to everyone. And obviously, as indicated, share with other academic institutions and stakeholders that may require some of what we do. As we continue, as we strive to blend theory with practice, this is something we have started and we'll continue on it, and hopefully we can build upon. And as Mrs. Zonyane did indicate, if you have any inputs in this regard, please do so, because we want to ensure that our students as well do benefit, are equipped, are empowered with what we know from the practice side, and then we can infuse that towards them within the academic space. So at this time, let me then bring in Dr. Pillay. Thank you so much, Dr. Pillay, that you managed to chip in at this time. I know that you also were a bit time challenged, but then it's important that you also just touch on this conversation that we're embarking upon today. Thank you so much, Dr. Pillay. The floor is yours, just to add any inputs that you may have as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ngcobo, and sorry for joining late. I think, for me as head of department in public management and economics, when we send out our students into the world of work, it is important for them to understand what will be their role and function, and importantly, the purpose. Also, when government departments or private providers provide them with a space to do their work integrated learning or their internship, students must realize it is not a right, it is a privilege. And as a result, we need to behave accordingly. Work integrated learning, as you know, it's the blend of theory and practice. Students complete the theory and then they go and get a period of practice in government departments for a period of 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months, or to a period of 2 years. But some of the key points that I would like to leave colleagues with is that they need to be authentic individuals. And authentic in the sense that the role that they're going to be playing in a department or an institution. Another key concept is the trust that they need to have in themselves and the people that they're working with, because it is a partnership, it is a relationship that they're embarking on for a period of time. And in that trust, it is a two-way process, not only where you need to trust in yourself, but you need to trust in the individuals that you're working with. And they should not get involved in what I call office politics and stay clear from that. They need to also be very value-driven. And the values that we talk about is honesty, for example. They need to be committed when it comes to time, be on time at work. Many years ago, code of dress or dress code was very critical and important. And I want to still emphasize the need for dressing properly and going into work as opposed being very casual to your, because that is your place of employment. We need to be kind to people. And kind in number of forms. Mentors from industry share with you their time, the space, and they are trying to ensure that as a mentor or as a coach, they're providing you with the relevant guidance. So we need to acknowledge the kindness, and we do things from the kindness of our heart. I was sitting with a colleague just, Kerry, and she was telling me that students need to have passion. And the passion is for the work that they will be doing. Because if we do not have passion for the work that we want to do, sorry guys, we're probably then wasting, or we have lost the plot. The passion to get involved in the work. And at the same time, when you have the passion, it's the initiatives that you need to have. We need to be intrinsically motivated to achieve a lot of these goals. And I can speak as an individual, some of the things that I've done is because I want to do it and I want to achieve. And I think Prof. Mantzaris may probably also agree with me. By the way, Dr. Emmanuel, Prof. Mantzaris was a lecturer to me many, many years ago. So I won't tell him how long ago, but back in the day. For me, the issue of integrity is very key and important. We need to ensure that we have this attribute of having integrity when it comes to work. And it's about the work ethic that we want to have in place. I strongly believe our work ethic, our integrity, the humility that we need to have will really drive us to achieve a lot of success. All in all, Dr. Emmanuel, going forward, students need to ensure they embrace the new normal, which I've seen, which is kind of going back to what we originally have. However, in saying that, please endeavor to do your best. Give all that you can, and in a way you will be rewarded. And the rewards come when people acknowledge the work that you put in. Do not wait for people to ask you to do things. If you finish your work early, go up and ask, is there anything that I could assist with? It's these initiatives that people need to embrace that will really go a long way, especially in any individual's career. So, Dr. Emmanuel, I'm not too sure if I've covered anything or if I've left out anything or if you need me to add.
No, very much, sir. No, thank you so much, Doc, for that, because it's also good to get a direct perspective from the one who's actually directly involved with these issues of work-integrated learning and what you've articulated, because it's unfortunate, as you've said as well, I've been involved with this now for quite a number of years as well, where some of the students do come in, and what Prof was also talking about, there's like a sense of entitlement that, you know what, I'm here, and you need to teach me and you need to mentor me. But it shouldn't be the case. It's your willingness that you portray, the respect that you must portray as a student, and then obviously the mentor will do their part in that regard as much as they can, because they still have their normal work that they need to perform, but then obviously they want to assist in that regard. But the ball is within the student's court to ensure that they do all that is required of them and take that initiative and be proactive in what they need to undertake. So, Dr. Pillay, we're hoping to build on this, as I indicated, I touched on it earlier, to ensure that going forward we can blend this theory and practice going forward. I know that a lot of universities do call us for this guest lecturing, which we try by all means, as you know, at DUT, I do a bit. But we're hoping then as we bring them all here, we can then play a more meaningful role as well. We'll still do the others, but then for these particular sessions, as we also leverage on technology that is out there for us to ensure that we can reach out to many others as much as possible. So thank you so much once again, Dr. Pillay. So at this time, we are going to be drawing this to a close. So I'll be just giving our fellow panelists just if they have any last few words and thoughts that they want to share in this respect. I'll start with yourself, Mr. Daniel Nolte, and then Prof. Evan, you'll come in, and then lastly, Dr. Pillay as well, if he has any last thoughts that he wants to share in this regard. Mr. Nolte?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ngcobo. Yeah, this has been very insightful, and like the Prof also said, I learned a lot, and I think that's one of the things that even though you've gone grey or whatever, and you think you've seen a lot, you can never stop learning. I had a lecturer many years ago that said you should actually focus every day on learning 5 new things, and it's actually quite easy, you know, because there's such a lot that I don't know, and I have learned a bit. Just to give you some background, I started at the bottom in the municipalities. I was a meter reader originally, so that's where I started. I was a student, so it sort of introduced me to the municipal environment, but only much later that I became really involved. As I mentioned earlier, I think we are at a crossroads, and we have an opportunity. You know, in those old SWOT analysis that we did, you know, you identify weaknesses, and I was always strong on the opportunities. You know, we have an opportunity now with, as I mentioned, with the new councils and with the new legislation that's in regarding the staff regulations, you know, that we must have a plan. Where I think we can actually blend a bit of theory with practice here is that if the academia, the universities can become involved in this to assist municipalities, you know, aligning all the functions and organograms to the constitutional mandates and the assignment from the Structures Act, etc. You know, that can be a blend, and we can then, I think, identify as well what is the need out there of where people, what they should be trained in before they become involved at a municipal level. So I think we can start fresh, and we can change things, even if it takes 10 years. You know, if we can start, take it day by day. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I think that's where we are. So yeah, with that, you know, I think there's definitely scope for us, and I like this conversation that we're having, and I think we should have more of that. You know, the interaction between the universities, then the National School of Government, very important, and the national departments, and then as well, you know, if we can get that knowledge, because there's a lot of knowledge out at the universities, you know, in the departments, the public management departments, which can be shared on a municipal level as well, particularly to management teams that has to formulate new plans now, how they're going to put their staff establishment together to ensure that they utilize their assets correctly in, you know, providing the social economic service delivery needs, as my good friend earlier spoke about, that, you know, that's the total scope of what we should be doing for the public. I think there's opportunity. We should grab this. I think so, and I thank you very much for the initiative that you're taking with Future Cities, you know, from the Municipal Edge in promoting that.
No, great. No, all good. And may you also enjoy your Friday afternoon at Pietermaritzburg. I hope it's not as cold as it was. I think last week there was some snow coming through there in PMB. But once again, my good friend, Mr. Nolte, we come a long way, and I'm hoping that we still have a longer way to go in local government. So thank you so much, Mr. Nolte. So let me then give a chance now to Prof. Evan, also just to have his last thoughts that he may want to share, and then Dr. Pillay, you will come in thereafter. Prof?
I really appreciate both Stellenbosch University and you especially for the opportunity to say my things. Also, I was very moved. I was very moved that Dr. Strini is around, and I hope he was around when I mentioned good things about DUT, because DUT now is far away from what DUT was about 10, 15 years ago, and I'm very proud of quite a few of my ex-students are there, and I keep in touch with them, not all. Especially, I don't keep in touch with the female professors and all that. I keep away from that. But I think it's very important. It's very important that the conversation and the webinar can become a little bit public. You see. So I see it's there, but you see, as I said earlier, I apologize because my digital knowledge is below zero, right? But I really feel very strongly that I thank you very much for the opportunity. If you need me anything, and my offer about the distribution of my articles is open. We'll keep in touch because now I'm sure I got your email addresses and everything. And when I got time, I'll send you the stuff, right? Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Siyabonga kakhulu, Prof. Even, and I'm very impressed with your understanding of, our South Africa and all its nice things. You were talking of the lobolas earlier, and now these babes or dumos, and you know all of that. So that's quite good, because I always say there's all these international good things that are happening out there. But then if we can't localize it and contextualize it to South Africa, what good is it going to do to us? So, but then, we thank you so much because, with your wealth of knowledge that you have, you've done a number of research, over the years and where you are. So obviously we need that. And importantly, we need it for South Africa to improve the status quo. So Siyabonga kakhulu, Prof. Even, certainly I'll take up the offer. And also within the municipal age, you also do some publishing. So we're hoping to actually publish some of that material as well within the magazine for our local government. Thank you so much, Prof.
Sure, thank you. Sure.
Right. Dr. Pillay, your last departing words that you may have, and also some good words came out there for DUT, that DUT has also improved over the years, and I think it's also attributable to you being at the helm there as well of Public Management and Economics Department. Anything towards that, Dr. Pillay?
Yeah, thanks, Emmanuel, and thanks, Prof. Mantzaris. It's nice to hear that DUT has really changed its position. And I think I want to concur with what Prof has mentioned. We've really gone leaps and bounds. But I think for me, going forward, and these conversations really have to have some impact on people around the province, if not around the republic. And it's what value we want to bring. I spoke about the positive work ethic. We need to look at the issues of diversity. We're working in very diverse work environments. So I think students and colleagues need to understand that how do we address some of these issues going forward? These issues around creativity and innovation. How can we become creative in the way we do things? How can we become innovative in the way we do things? And also we need to look at what are communities of practice that are around us that we can learn from. And Dr. Ngcobo, to you and your team, I think you're doing a sterling piece of work. I think we need to continue with that. And like you've been part of my advisory board for quite some time now. We will be inviting colleagues like yourself and other individuals to share some experiences. And I think when individuals see practitioners' point of view, they tend to have a different perspective and a different understanding. And that just contributes. And I think this cross-pollination of ideas between theory and practice, between practitioner and academic, is very important for us to achieve some of the objectives that we hope to see during the course of this year and into the future. So thank you, colleagues, and all the best in the future. Enjoy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I also take the those words that will continue in these collaborations going forward and pick up on this. Siyabonga kakhulu, Dr. Pillay, on that. So at this time, let me also bring in my other good partner, Mr. Dan Klassen, who will just do his also last words. It's our last session for today in this webinar series that we have undertaken. So I've hijacked him by putting him on the spot here just to also share a bit. We will be sharing these recordings as indicated to everyone, disseminated as far as wide as possible, but especially to the universities to ensure that the students out there, obviously who are not part of these conversations, can then listen to these or watch some of these recordings that we have put together. So on the chat box, there is a link that put all these conversations in, and then as indicated, then those who want to listen to or watch can then do so. So, Mr. Klassen, let me then hand over to you for your last few words that you may have for us as well.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And I've been behind the scenes for most of the series, but luckily for this occasion, I did put a shirt on. As Doctor mentioned, he just told me that I'll be doing some closing thoughts. So I just would like to thank all the participants, all the speakers for contributing and participating during this 4-webinar series, which is the second local government conversation series that is produced by or hosted by Future Cities Africa and the Municipal Edge. I do trust that you find these conversations of great value. We will keep you updated on any new developments and, of course, the third series of local government conversations. And if you do have any ideas or feedback that you would like to share with us, please do get in touch. And just to close, as a good friend once told me, everyone is touched by local government. And that is why we keep on doing what we do. So thank you very much.
All right. No, thank you as well, Mr. Klassen, for your continued good works in the background. That's why today I felt let me put him out there because he does such a very tremendous good job on his side. So just to draw from the words of Prof earlier, hope doesn't fail. Let's continue being hopeful that we'll see the change that we desire in local government and the public service at large. But it starts with us doing what we are doing, and hopefully as we make those good steps, someday we can look back with eyes of accomplishment for what we have undertaken, but also importantly, others can take this and take it forward and improve much further from what you could have undertaken. So with those words, God bless and keep well. We'll then keep in touch with the new things that will be upcoming in the future. Siyabonga.